The old man, an 80-year-old internet addict, was dragged to the senior university by his 18-year-old mother. At the school gate, he threw a tantrum, pouting and whining not to go in. His mother, worried about his late-night gaming habits, refused him without hesitation. When he turned to his eldest grandson to act cute, the girl sighed helplessly. She called him an 80-year-old baby and told him to behave. His 4 grandsons lined up like soldiers, reminding him to make friends, not talk in class, and avoid late romances. Just as he prepared to drag his feet into class, news broke that the 3rd young master had returned. His eyes lit up instantly, begging for a day off. With his daughter's approval, the whole family rushed home. The 3rd grandson was a prodigy, a scientist so brilliant he rivaled their great-grandmother. Servants buzzed with excitement, faces full of expectation. The girl thought it was admiration for science, but the eldest grandson corrected her. People didn't worship his mind, they adored his charm. The 3rd grandson was a heartbreaker, adored by everyone from schoolgirls to aunties. The 5th young master sulked, wishing to be just as charming. The old man lectured him, being a playboy like his 3rd brother only leads to trouble. When the family entered the house, they froze in disbelief. Standing in front of them was the 3rd grandson, dressed head to toe as Ultraman. Turns out he'd been hit on the head, lost his memory, and was sent home by a kind soldier. Now, with the mind of a 5-year-old, he pulled off his mask and instantly fell for the girl. He gifted her his favorite toys and invited her to play games. Doctors diagnosed trauma-induced mental disorder. Doctors diagnosed severe trauma, likely permanent, but the woman remained calm. She claimed that 49 days of acupuncture would restore him completely. Just then, a pregnant woman arrived, claiming to be carrying his child, but the 3rd young master looked disgusted. The girl saw through her lies immediately. Pressed by the girl's aura, the scheming woman admitted part of her story was false, but insisted the child was truly his. The eldest suggested calling the driver for confirmation. The driver instantly recognized the woman and confirmed seeing her often. Seeing his genuine expression, the girl decided to let her stay, for now. The old man even pulled a black card from his eldest grandson's pocket to give her. Meanwhile, in the room, the 3rd young master declared he wanted the girl to be his wife. His 2 younger brothers panicked and told him to stop. He asked innocently if she was their wife instead. They denied it, and he beamed, "Then she's mine." The old man turned green with rage, shouting that she was his mother. The 3rd young master tilted his head and replied, "Then I'm your dad." Furious, the old man raised his hand, but slapped the 5th young master instead. Elsewhere, the scheming woman admired the family's jewels, stuffing a few into her pocket and acting like the mistress of the house. She ordered the servants to kneel and serve her, but little did she know, the girl was already onto her. The 3rd young master, the so-called fool, only glanced at the paper and solved the problem that tormented the 5th young master for hours. The 4th young master gasped. It was the hardest question in years of college exams. The 5th young master refuses to believe it, thinking the 3rd young master is just bluffing, until the great-grandmother confirms it. Humiliation burned through his pride, and he dragged the fool to test him again and again, each answer flawless. A 5-year mind with the intelligence of a genius, his world began to crack. Then the fool gently cupped his face and called him stupid. Furious, the 5th young master tries to strike him, but the great-grandmother yanks him by the hair, warning him that if he doesn't finish the questions, the one being hit will be him. Meanwhile, the scheming woman, eager to feel like the young madam, starts throwing her weight around. She slapped over a bowl of strawberries, claiming she hated the seeds. When served the peeled ones, she demanded to be fanned. When the servants hesitated, she demanded they kneel. Cornered, the servants knelt in humiliation. The 3rd young master, witnessing this, steps in to defend them, but the driver slams his head against the wall. The noise drew everyone downstairs. When the others rush downstairs, they find the 3rd young master crouched in a corner, holding his head and crying. The driver rushed to explain it was an accident. Then, under the guise of taking him for medicine, he whispered threats to keep quiet. But when the great-grandmother asked, the fool spoke up instantly and hid behind her. The driver defended himself, calling the fool's words unreliable. The great-grandmother smiled faintly, then told the fool to go watch cartoons. The next second, her palm cracked across the driver's face. She pinned him down like a hawk trapping prey. The scheming woman, witnessing all of this, commands the great-grandmother to release him, but she is ignored. The scheming woman pulls out the old man's black card, trying to use it to exert pressure on the great-grandmother. But the great-grandmother kicks the card away and strips her of any power. Furious, the scheming woman shouted she would go to the old master himself. But before she could move, the old master appeared. The 18-year-old girl turned cold, calling him by name and pointing straight at him. She asked how he could raise someone so cruel. The old man freezes, unable to speak. The scheming woman, unaware of the girl's true identity, attempts to use this moment to have her thrown out. But the old master erupted, banishing the driver for life, revoking all the scheming woman's luxuries, and stripping her of her young madam title. Only then did she realize the girl was not someone she could ever afford to offend. The 18-year-old great-grandmother had just gotten her driver's license, and with her great-grandson in tow, took a joyride in her new sports car. The 5th young master stared in horror as the new driver pushed the speedometer to 250. He instantly regretted getting in the car, realizing they were heading straight for danger. The great-grandmother, unfazed, casually tossed a bomb. Someone had tampered with the car's brakes and accelerator, and it wouldn't slow down. The 5th young master panicked, crying out that he was going to die. Hi. As the phone rang, he shakily answered it. The eldest young master on the other end calmly instructed him to set up roadblocks ahead. The eldest quickly organized a team to assist. Ahead, 2 giant trucks were traveling side by side, and the 5th young master's fear was so overwhelming that tears streamed down his face. But he still had the presence of mind to try and post a selfie in his WeChat moments so that everyone wouldn't forget him. As the truck loomed closer, the great-grandmother calmly steered the wheel. With a graceful maneuver, she narrowly avoided the trucks, crashing into the roadblocks set in advance. After coming to a stop, she coolly stepped out and let the still-shaken 5th young master out of the car. Just then, the eldest and the old master arrived, panic-stricken, fearing they'd lost the matriarch once again. The 5th young master, trembling, praised her driving skills. The 4th young master, who had read her autobiography, explained that her driving was honed in the war years, amidst gunfire and chaos. What followed wasn't just an accident, it was part of a larger plan. A few days earlier, the great-grandmother had been administering acupuncture to the 3rd young master in an attempt to restore his memory. With each needle, the 3rd young master briefly recalled a memory from his past. The first needle made him remember when the 5th young master had ruined a 5-year-old walnut collection, lying that a dog had stolen it. The second needle brought up the time when the 5th young master had urinated in his cup, convincing him it was iced tea, and the old master drank it. The third needle triggered a memory of the time the 5th young master had put chili powder in the eldest young master's underwear, causing him to suffer for days. The family, enraged, restrained the 5th young master and used a cactus on him as punishment. Meanwhile, the scheming woman was sweating bullets, fearing that the 3rd young master would remember her past misdeeds. The 3rd young master, too, had his own demons. The driver, desperate to pay off a gambling debt, had stolen his Patek Philippe watch. When confronted, the driver tried to run him over. To cover up his crime, the driver and his girlfriend concocted a lie that the woman was pregnant with his child. The truth came to light when the 3rd young master, using his remote-controlled car with a hidden camera, captured their conversation. In his haste to save the girl, the 3rd young master fell and hit his head, but he managed to tell the eldest young master the truth. Realizing their scheme was exposed, the pair tried to flee but were cornered at the bus station. The scheming woman faked a fall, crying for help to gather a crowd. She claimed that she was pregnant with the 3rd young master's child, and the family was rejecting her because of her poor background. But just as she thought the tide had turned in her favor, the 3rd young master, now with full memory, approached. Without hesitation, he denied knowing her. The driver stepped forward to vouch for her, but the 3rd young master calmly rattled off the names of every woman he had been with, citing each one with meticulous detail. For a whole hour, he listed names and incidents, leaving the crowd bored and weary. Finally, he concluded, "I am heart-focused, not body-focused," and detailed the many mistakes the two had made. Desperate, the driver pulled a knife on the 3rd young master, but the great-grandmother was quicker.